Thank cySEC for the cooperation, and thank you all for your attention. George, back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Yasemidi. Thank you all for your valuable perspectives. So now we will move on to the Q&A section. So the first question relates to technology and finance. So let me frame the question. So in the last decade, we have witnessed a dramatic proliferation in new technologies and an overall digitalization of the financial services sector. So let me name a few technologies such as fintech, regtech, subtech, artificial intelligence, blockchain technologies, DLT, and so on. So I will address a question to Mr. Taxidaris and Mr. Klapas as representatives of the investment firm industry. So how, in your view, have these changes affected the sector, and how are they incorporated in the market participants' future plans? So let's start with Mr. Taxidaris.
Thank you, George. Indeed, the last decade saw dramatic changes in this area, and especially COVID era, the recent 1.5 years, accelerated and highlighted further this trend, actually. We observe that investment firms have become fully digitalized and they operate in a contactless manner. They contact the client, they conduct business without, in a seamless manner, without any contact with the client directly or face-to-face contact. This gave them a competitive edge, obviously, during the COVID era, and in every single part and operation of their business, they rely on technology, marketing, and reaching to end clients via digital channels and social media. KYC becomes e-KYC. Account opening documents are all completed online. The provision of investment services, trading, brokerage are on dedicated platforms, digital platforms. Expert software is put in place to monitor callers and their conversations with clients. Reporting to clients is done electronically. Reporting to regulators is done via special software designed for that purpose. Transaction reporting as well. Best execution monitoring tools, market surveillance tools, CRS FATCA reporting, and so on. And amazingly, all this can happen not only using a PC, but also on a smartphone and a handset. So owing to all these developments, financial firms gradually became at large technology firms, actually, with a growing percentage of their staff being IT people, developers, digital marketeers, rather than the more traditional staff. A challenging, which is facing currently all these firms, has to do with sourcing eligible personnel and trained personnel in this area. Having said that, I need to note that at the same time, banks and the banking system are a challenge themselves. Banking regulators globally have to keep up with this change, and currently the banking system in various jurisdictions does not seem able and willing to support this technological advance and change and digital transformation. This is something that we need to ensure that it happens, because there are efforts, intense efforts by cySEC leading this transformation, but at the same time we need a healthy and supportive banking system in order to reach our targets. The heavy reliance on technology and the subsequent competitive edge for investment firms made them even more attractive and induced an increased interest recently and demand in this kind of structures. I have to note lastly that in response to these trends, cySEC gained a reputation of understanding and embracing technology and its advances in finance in recent years. One example is the setting up of the Innovation Hub. And a challenge would be to maintain this image and enhance it going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taxidaris. And let's hear also the view by Mr. Klapas.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. I will echo a lot of my colleague has just mentioned right now, with a focus to the future, which I think the last 10 years have actually gave us a glimpse. We are only at the beginning. 4 topic areas where I think investors, intermediaries, and regulators really need to focus on, with 2 being megatrends. Number 1 is blockchain technologies. Blockchain technologies have such efficiencies that allow for intermediaries to become obsolete without the adequate investment in technology. This is something that we need to keep in mind going forward as peer-to-peer becomes prevalent in almost any subsector of the financial services industry. Number 2 is ESG. ESG will become ever more incorporated in every customer's expectation of its service. They will need more transparency and an assessment of the impact that they have with every purchase. Thirdly, a bit more current, as these are 2 more long-term trends, is fintech. A startup that builds from the ground up with machine learning, AI, and robotics has no problem with legacy systems and incorporating them in the new world. Their focus is mainly on better customer experience at a fraction of the cost. This is not a threat, this is innovation, and we need to encourage it. At the same time, we need to be aware, to be ahead, as regulators need to be ahead of the curve make sure to be able to regulate such new approaches. Finally, and very importantly, is the threat of cyber. By becoming more digital and automated in our processes, outsourcing, moving to mobile platforms, web-based platforms, we leave windows of opportunity for intrusion. And cyber is a threat today, and it will be a much more prevalent threat in the future that we need to focus on. I will just say as a closing remark that the regulator has a role to play of fostering innovation, allowing competition, at the same time protecting the industry. This can all occur through efficient capital markets. If we have efficient capital markets, reallocation of capital can be as transparent and as seamless as possible. We, as an association, and our roots has always been at the core, working towards, with cySEC and the Cyprus Stock Exchange, towards this end. It's not a secret that our Cyprus Stock Exchange turnover is only at about 1% of what it was 20 years ago. The Cyprus Stock Exchange members today are not based exclusively on revenues from this operation. They have moved, obviously, to other streams. And as regulators and as market participants, we need to find ways to move forward to a more efficient capital market system. Closing, we would also like to thank again our close cooperation with Ms. Kalogiru, especially for the last years we've been able to contribute and shape regulation and laws as we came across them.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Klapa. Thank you also, Mr. Taxidari, for your very valuable comments, which touches upon the importance of technology on the financial services firms, the opportunities that technology provides to the financial services industry, but also you've touched also upon the challenges that it can bring to this industry. So I will move now to the second question, which the second question relates to compliance in finance. And I will address this question to Mr. Koudurouchis and Mr. Taxidaris. So again, I will frame the question. So what do you think, how does the future hold for compliance amidst the stricter financial compliance requirements that we have and the technological developments, as we discussed about, and the digitalization trends that we observe today? And what we observe is that post-2008, post the global banking or financial crisis, we have seen an enormous increase in the importance of compliance in the financial services industry, whether it's related to AML or terrorist financing issues, or whether it's related to internal audits reports, compliance reports, and so on. So how do you see this trend moving forward? So I will start with Mr. Koudoulou.
Thank you very much. First of all, and I think Dimitris touched on this earlier, it is important to strike the balance between regulation and business development. If you over-regulate in any industry, you tend to reduce business activity and entrepreneurship. So, as I said earlier, we have come a long way in terms of our compliance efforts. The international trend is one of transparency and substance. As far as our industry goes, there have been tremendous changes over the past 5 years in this respect. The G7 recently announced an intention for a global tax base. So all of these things create a more transparent business model, whether you're operating out of Cyprus or any other jurisdiction. One of the things that we need to tackle in Cyprus in terms of our compliance efforts is we still have traces of a tick-the-box approach. This is something that we need to get over. We need to understand what compliance really means and apply it effectively instead of applying it as a process of simply filling out forms or completing, let's say, mandatory requirements. If we understand how to apply compliance effectively, the whole, our whole effort will become a lot easier. And let's face it, compliance is a function, is a function that is, it's capital consuming for a regulated entity. It doesn't add any value in terms of its revenues. It is actually a cost. So if we are better at doing this, it means we lower our operational costs. The other thing we need to focus on in Cyprus is the fact that we have, at least for our industry, we have 3 regulatory bodies, which obviously creates, at times, it creates a sort of an unplaying, a not level playing field. And this is something that we need to address. And we need all 3 regulators to agree on some uniform regulation so that the standards, we set standards in the industry, and by setting these standards and by ensuring that all regulated entities follow the same rules and the same standards, then we increase the service offering. In terms of digitalization, I wouldn't see this as a disruption in our industry. I don't see in the way that it has changed investment firms. Our line of business is not so, let's say, IT intensive, or it doesn't evolve as quickly. What we would like to see in terms of digitalization is efforts from the government in order to digitalize and in order to change manual processes. And unfortunately, as a jurisdiction, and comparing with similar, let's say, international business destinations within the EU, we're still playing catch-up. So this is something that we need to improve massively in the next few years. Otherwise, we're going to be outdated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Godorouchis, for your valuable comments. So we will hear also the view by Mr. Taxidaris again.
Thank you, George. This is an extremely interesting topic, being also involved by profession heavily in compliance. I would like to make 4 points here. First of all, it is my view that the financial industry is quite heavily regulated globally, almost overwhelmingly actually, including in the European Union. This doesn't have to do with Cyprus specifically or cySEC. It is a global trend and is expected to continue going forward. It is indeed regulated, first of all, in a way which is often unfair for its participants compared to other segments of the financial industry, like the insurance, I would say, segment. And at the same time, it's also regulated in a way which doesn't always reflect fairly proportionality. So what I mean is that it doesn't take into account adequately the scale, nature, and complexity of each business. And this is important going forward. Secondly, I want to say that the advances and trends we observe recently have led to the rise of what we call regulatory technology or RegTech, which you mentioned earlier, George, a buzzword which came effectively into existence in recent years to reflect and embrace all these new technologies in the regulatory field and in the financial industry. This will definitely grow as a trend and will be enhanced further by the standardization of technologies which are used and the uniformity of regulations across the European Union and the world. Thirdly, it is important to refer to artificial intelligence in RegTech, which is becoming again a trend, a growing trend, allowing automated solutions to learn progressively and to improve based on the past and the experience that is recorded throughout time. I do not expect, of course, the traditional compliance officer to disappear suddenly and to be replaced by machines, but I cannot imagine going forward a compliance officer who doesn't know how to use machines and software. So, especially today and in 10 years from now. Lastly, and equally important, I think it will be a challenge going forward for all regulators to keep up with technological advances. cySEC is at the forefront, as said already, but at the same time, it is a challenge to keep up and to issue regulations which are timely, especially taking into account internal policies of regulators, processes within the European Union, market consultation required, the speed at which technological advances come out and change throughout time, and other factors. So I think this last point will be a challenge also for cySEC, and it is important to work on it and stay at the forefront. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taxidaris. Thank you to both of you. I think you touched, again, at very important points related to the essence of stricter compliance and stricter regulation and the challenges that it can bring both to the regulator, but the challenges that it can bring both to the market going forward. And I think we all agree that regulation will continue, this trend of higher compliance will continue, so we have to be aware of the challenges that brings forward. So I will move on now to the last question, which relates, I think, to the essence of the financial services, of the fact that the financial services should be there to provide alternative sources of financing and investing to the economy, to the real economy. So I will address this question to Mr. Christodoulidis, as a chairman of the Cyprus Stock Exchange, Mr. Leptos, and Mr. Iasemidis. So to frame the question, how do you see Cyprus can further boost the alternative forms of finance in order to complement, but also to alleviate the historical over-reliance that we have in Cyprus on bank lending and borrowing? So I will start with Mr. Christodoulidis. The floor is yours.
Thank you, George. Any exchange, as we all know, plays a very important role in every advanced economy. I would say that it is the frontispiece of the capital markets. This also should be the case for Cyprus Stock Exchange, since it can operate as a very important tool for capital raising and as an alternative tool of financing to complement other traditional means, of course, of financing in Cyprus, such as the banks, other financial institutions, and new forms of financing like funds. Cyprus Stock Exchange is very well positioned to adapt to the increasing challenges of the future, and it is ideally situated to offer alternative forms of finance. Indeed, this is traditionally one of the reasons of the existence of capital markets, as I already mentioned before. The exchange can therefore play an important role in the development of the companies and of the economy in general, especially at present times, taking into consideration the collective effort that have been put in place for overcoming the adverse effects of the financial crisis and COVID-19 pandemic that have prevailed in our country in the last years. Within this framework, the Cyprus Stock Exchange is making efforts to attract more companies for listing on the exchange, which will increase the liquidity in the market and also provide new attractive investment opportunities to domestic and foreign investors. Especially the current period, that the interest in the banks, the returns provided are not at all satisfactory, and therefore new ways of investments are needed. Cyprus Stock Exchange, as we already all know, it offers a wide spectrum of markets, products, and services. And all market participants and stakeholders can benefit accordingly, either for listing or investing or making use of CSE services. So CSE operates a regulated market, a multilateral trading facility, an MTF market, and central securities depository, and all these are operating on advanced infrastructure and technology. Simple procedures, quick and effective processes, and with competitive pricing policies. Various markets of the exchange can be therefore utilized for different market needs and appetite for listing in the exchange. Further to different listing and investment opportunities, the exchange could also offer several other useful services by using the exchange infrastructure and capabilities that we already have. Here I would like to mention a few of the advantages that the CSE listing has. The first of all is the ability to raise capital. It offers to investors a price mechanism for every listed security on a daily basis. The companies have visibility and recognition for attracting institutional investors. Investments are made through SIFs and that fulfill the KYC and AML procedures and requirements, and this is very important. The Cyprus Stock Exchange markets can provide solutions, as I mentioned before, for different business needs and strategic goals. And the last but not least is the transparency provided, which is very important in our case in Cyprus after all these issues that we had the last period. In addition to the continuously increased need for compliance, the exchange is also focusing on the important area of digitalization and for the continuous improvement of its infrastructure. Since both parameters consist important trends for the medium to long-term development of the capital markets in the European Union, and the panelists before they gave emphasis on the digitalization, and they were very correct. As a conclusion, I would like to stress the importance of advancing the Cyprus Stock Exchange as an important tool for the development of the companies and the economy in general. And I would like, therefore, to invite all market participants to consider the framework of the exchange and the opportunities provided and to make use of its markets, products, and services. Needless to say that the implementation of the CSE strategic plan, and more specifically the forthcoming privatization of the exchange, will significantly contribute towards the achievement of this aim. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Christodoulidis, for providing the view of how the Cyprus Stock Exchange can be a great source of raising capital, but also for providing investment opportunities to the market and the plans that you have going forward and with the privatization plans. So I will also address now the question to Mr. Leptos. Let's hear the view by Mr. Leptos.
Well, I was covered by the president of Cyprus Stock Exchange, and also by my speech before that. It was concentrated exactly on this point. The answer is obvious. We have to go through this Cyprus Stock Exchange, which we must enhance and we must modernize in order to be able, for people to be able safely to make their investments. Loans means increased cost, lower profits, lower prices of shares, and a disadvantage, which means a disadvantage for investors to invest into the stock exchange. So we have to concentrate on this goal, and this is a role for the government to instigate. And in order to instigate, they must decide on it. Should we consider proceeding with the stock exchange, yes or no? I think the answer is yes, in view of the so many benefits and advantages we have by it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Leptos. And let's hear also the view by Mr. Iasemidis as the chairman of the funds industry.
Thank you, George. Obviously, the alternative financing sector, as it's called, is rapidly evolving in the last few years. There are specific numbers that indicate it. I can say that in the US, more than 63% of the new projects is being financed through alternative ways of financing. In Europe, this percentage is slightly lower, it's 49%. Why we have seen this trend? First of all, as we know very well, the banking system has faced significant challenges in the last decade, including lack of liquidity, stricter rules regarding the loan financing and other matters. At the same time, the collective investment schemes offer a more protected way of investing, and therefore we believe that in the near future, collective investment scheme as financing tool will replace at a large extent the traditional banking lending. It's important to be mentioned that investors are more comfortable to subscribe for units in collective investment scheme because they are regulated, they are well monitored. There is a group of professionals, including risk manager, portfolio manager, compliance officer, that will monitor and manage the structuring and provide the presence of so many professionals as a layer of additional protection to the investors. And this is what we can do in Cyprus in order to move forward. First of all, I believe that we need to further educate the public regarding the investment funds, because I strongly believe that if we have investing through an informative basis in investment firm, will restore the confidence, will help to restore the view, the image of Cyprus, and at the same time will rebalance the market. So as I said before, we have now a complete legal and regulatory framework for fund in Cyprus, and through the continuous support, monitoring and checks by cySEC, I believe more and more investors will subscribe for units in a fund, and we can use these investment funds coming from foreign Cypriot investors to finance projects in all the sectors of our economy, a real project, and at the same time alleviate from the over-compliance on the banking sector. Thank you, George.
Thank you, Mr. Yasemiri. Thank you to all of you. I think you all touched at some very important points, opportunities, challenges that relate to the financial services industry, and I think we had a very fruitful discussion. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're coming towards the closing of our digital event. First and foremost, I would like to express my appreciation to our distinguished speakers and panelists for their valuable contribution to our digital event on the occasion of the 25th anniversary of the Cyprus Securities and Exchange Commission. During the panel discussion, we have heard about the key role that financial technology plays in the future of our markets, the importance of compliance, and the boundless potential for alternative investments. Over the past 25 years, cySEC has seen its supervisory role widen substantially, while at the same time its responsibilities have been expanded. So to this end, in the 25 years of its presence, cySEC has worked hard in implementing key infrastructure projects that would better enable it to fulfill its mission. That is exercising effective supervision to ensure investor protection and the healthy development of the securities market. So before the closing of this digital conference, I would like to praise the work of the chairman, vice chairman, and the members of the boards of the Commission who have served through its first quarter of a century, as well as the staff of the Commission, all of whom have contributed to the development of the investment services sector with their expertise and professionalism. I would like also to give special thanks to Mrs. Kalogiru, who will be completing this coming September 10 years as the chairwoman of the Commission. As the vice chairman of the Commission since last year and a member of the board before, I had a close collaboration with Dimitra. I have seen her determination and her vision for cySEC through the tireless work and her efforts. Her invaluable impact all these years have shaped the Commission's role and importance and has paved the way for the market's growth and development. In the next years, cySEC's regulatory agenda is based on maintaining high standards of investor protection and investor confidence, which would lead to the healthy development of the market with new products and services using financial technology and innovation, and we look forward to the future with great confidence. Our deepest gratitude goes also to all of you who have joined us today from Cyprus and abroad. We are thrilled to see so many attendees join us, and we hope you enjoyed it. We will also close with another view of the video for our 25-year anniversary. So thank you all and wish you a great rest of the day.
The Cyprus Securities and Exchange Commission is the independent public supervisory authority of the securities market, one of the three authorities that regulate the financial sector in Cyprus. 2021 marks the 25 years of cySEC's presence.
In these 25 years, progress has been remarkable. From 1996 onwards, the Cyprus capital market has experienced significant growth.
The regulator's supervisory remit has widened substantially in these years to include new groups of supervised firms and products. Today, it supervises more than 790 entities, recording an increase of 217% since 2011. In addition to the stock exchange, its markets and the issuers of securities. These include the investment firms, the administrative service providers, the management companies, and collective investment funds, and very soon, crypto exchanges. In this vein, the role and supervisory responsibilities of cySEC have been significantly expanded and upgraded to ensure investor protection in an ever-changing financial landscape. cySEC looks to actively support new financial technology products, services, and infrastructure projects, particularly those that can themselves finance startups offering innovative products. To this end, cySEC has established an innovation hub in 2018 to explore the growth and users of financial and regulatory technology. Since the country's accession to the European Union in 2004, the national securities market legal framework was fully and promptly harmonized with all the latest EU directives and regulations. Among others, cySEC has pressed ahead for the completion of a comprehensive regulatory framework for the collective investment and asset management sector as an alternative form of financing the real economy.
It has been the strong belief of the government and of the Ministry of Finance that the development of the capital markets and the opportunities they provide can only be achieved with strong supervision of the sector and good market conduct. It is for this reason that the Ministry of Finance has been actively supporting all efforts of cySEC to enhance its capabilities, either through the enactment of legislation for the capital markets or through the significant enhancement of cySEC's capacity with resources and personnel. We commit to this close cooperation and support for the years to come.
Due to the very diverse and sophisticated market participants, cySEC keeps up to date with the best supervisory practices.
We have built and applied a risk-based supervision philosophy which dictates our priorities. The rule that governs what we do is that the entities and market segments which pose greater risks to the market will be subject to the closest scrutiny.
Over the last 25 years, cySEC was gradually granted new, increased, and expanded powers. As a result, it now has at its disposal the necessary dissuasive and repressive tools to ensure the regulatory compliance of the supervised entities. cySEC places great emphasis on the financial education, professionalism, innovation, as well as the standard of services offered by the entities we supervise and their employees. From 2015, all compliance officers of CIFs and traders have been obliged to pass specialized exams and to be continuously educated on regulatory matters. In 2020, these requirements were extended to cover also the AML compliance officers and soon the financial information providers of CIFs.
This has increased the level of professionalism in the sector and heightened market confidence and efficiency.
At the same time, cySEC advocates the need for public education in financial matters. To this end, it undertakes various educative actions and initiatives through publications on its website and the media. Also, it advocates for the introduction of financial education in schools. Through the years, the regulator structure was expanded and new departments were created to meet its growing responsibilities and the development of the sector. From a staff of just one employee in 1996, cySEC now employs 121 professionals covering a wide range of specializations in finance, accounting, law, and programming. Throughout the years, cySEC maintained close cooperation and exchange of assistance, expertise, and best practices with other national competent authorities worldwide. To this end, cySEC has signed 22 bilateral memoranda of understanding and cooperation with supervisory authorities and other bodies, and 51 bilateral MOUs with supervisory authorities outside the EU, based on the European Directive on Alternative Investment Fund Managers. cySEC is an active member of the ESMA and IOSCO. The vision of cySEC and most earnest duty is to enhance the Cypriot securities market to make it one of the safest and most reliable investment destinations in Europe.